provides a funding stream for whatever aircraft comes out on top of the Air Force's Light Attack Aircraft Experiment, more commonly known as AX. In July 2017, the service expects to begin evaluating at least 3 different planes: Sierra Nevada Corporation's SNC, and Embraer Defense and Security's A-29 Super Tucano and Textron Aviation's AT-6 Wolverine and Scorpion, at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. There is always the possibility that other firms will get invitations to join the tests, too. On top of that, in January 2017, Senator John McCain, an Arizona Republican who just so happens to be chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, released a white paper titled Restoring American Power. It recommended purchasing a fleet of 300 low-cost, light attack fighters that would require minimal work to develop, with the first 200 entering service by 2022. These aircraft could conduct counter-terrorism operations, perform close air support and other missions in permissive environments, and help to season pilots to mitigate the Air Force's fighter pilot shortfall, McCain explained. Based on existing cost data, the $1.2 billion figure fits in well with this earlier proposal. The Pentagon has already helped purchase A-29s for the air forces of Afghanistan and Lebanon, with each aircraft costing approximately between $10 and $15 million. These deals have all included various spare parts, support services, training courses, and other ancillary items, meaning the exact cost of the planes specifically has not been immediately apparent, but more than $1 billion would easily cover a full fleet of dozens of aircraft. The Senate plan makes perfect sense. For years, the Air Force in particular has been fighting a string of low-intensity conflicts against opponents with limited air defense capabilities, primarily using high-performance aircraft, including multi-role fighter jets, as well as drones. This has proven to be an expensive proposition and taxing on an already strained fighter force, as Senator McCain noted in his white paper. But for nearly a decade the service only gave lip service to the idea of buying light attacker to fly these missions on the cheap. That institutional mindset seemed to be changing earlier in 2017. OX could be a more sustainable model for the future that would be less costly, and that I could entice foreign partners and allies and coalition members to partner with us on, U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff General David Goldfein explained during a talk at the American Enterprise Institute on January 18, 2017. Still, the Air Force has made it abundantly clear it has no clear goal for the OX experiment or existing idea of how it might integrate any winner into its existing force structure. The project is not a procurement, it's an experiment, Secretary of the Air Force Heather Wilson said during a talk at the Air Force Association Forum in Washington, D.C. on June 5, 2017. A defense budget that funds a light attack fleet could be the prompt service needs to actually lay out a coherent plan for how OX becomes a fully fledged procurement program. There are, unfortunately, risks with this strategy, as well. The Senate only needs to look at the outcome of the Light Attack, Armed Reconnaissance, LA, program. After individuals within Air Combat Command, the Air Force's main warfighting command, drafted the initial OX concept in December 2008, the service had begun budgeting for this fleet of approximately 15 light attack aircraft, before bringing the project to an inglorious halt in 2012. A big part of why this happened had to do with budget cuts and the process known as sequestration, which imposed caps on defense spending. Contract squabbles were another factor, which also threatened to scuttle a parallel project to send similar planes to Afghanistan, which did ultimately result in purchases of A-29s. However, even if the Air Force had overcome these hurdles, it had no idea where the light attackers would go. Federal statutes and internal rules meant units tasked with training foreign air forces, such as the 6th Special Operations Squadron, were the only ones who could do the job the service intended for the aircraft. But with a host of non-standard planes already, they weren't particularly interested. Air Combat Command did have a certain level of interest, but had no authority to fly them. In addition, it wasn't entirely clear where the personnel for the new squadron would come from or who would ultimately pay for its upkeep. If the Air Force doesn't rise to the Senate's new proposal, this new OX fleet could end up homeless within the service, just like the proposed LA aircraft. A similar situation arose with the C-27 Jules airlifter, all of which ended up horse-traded to U.S. Special Operations Command, the U.S. Coast Guard, and the U.S. Forest Service. However, if the program does run into problems, the Air Force could work with other services to share the burdens and keep things moving forward. For years now, the Marine Corps has considered creating a composite training force that includes a similar type aircraft. Its concept has the planes helping tactical air controllers on the ground and forward air controllers in the air practice calling in and coordinating close air support missions. The existing plans do not include a combat role for these planes at present. First mentioned in the Corps 2016 Master Aviation Plan,